Welcome to the Faces Podcast. And today, my guest is going to be someone who's experienced not only homelessness, getting a master's degree while being homeless, but also starting a business that was basically dead in the water in the military veteran industry. And guess what? He's not even a veteran. And now he's leading the way in how people express not only their active service, but their veteran relationship with their military life. And so join me as I welcome Jason, CEO and owner of Pitch and Rudder. So let's jump into it. Jason, brother, good to see you again.
Yeah, it's good to see you again too.
Warmer climates, I hope. Right? Actually, no, it's not. It's definitely not any warmer in Minnesota.
Yeah, no, we're full of winter weather up here in the great northern tundra of Minnesota.
Tundra. When you start referring to your outside as tundra, you know it's not warm.
Oh yeah, all the grass is. I have like about an inch of ice, like for where the coming out. I always have to tell my kids to be careful, don't step on the grass. It's an ice rink.
Yeah, it's so funny though, because down here in Mexico, my wife and I were like, we get winter, right? It gets pretty cold here, right? It's 60, 55 degrees at nighttime. So it's my brother and you guys talking about tundra.
Yeah,
That's funny. Well, we're indoors, and so we'll be fine. But Jason, it was great meeting you at the Hill Capital event. It was a pleasure having that short 15-minute conversation with you. Today I just really want to pull back more layers. I want to kind of learn more about your story. And we were talking beforehand about how entrepreneur, it's not a path. It's not a 2 + 2 does not equal 4. It equals like 12. Right. Sometimes it equals -12. So, depending on the business you're in. And so, man, I just want to start off by giving like a 2-minute who you are, right? Just tell me like who you are, and then let's jump into it from there.
yeah. I think probably one of the things is, I hate to say like authentic, but I mean authentic. I've always lived like how I am outside and inside. And whether that's been going through difficult things, I've just kind of kept that mindset of I just want to be an authentic self of who I am. So, I've gone through, homelessness. I was homeless for a year, and I just kind of rebuilt everything about myself at that point, kind of figuring out where to go, what to do. I earned my master's degree in psychology, so I learned a lot about people and interacting, and just how to have authentic conversations, and understanding what motivates people. And then basically, I ended up acquiring Pitch and Rudder. It was abandoned. It wasn't something that I just polished as like a polished item that I acquired. It was abandoned by the previous owner, to say the least, with a lot of uh, grit and dirt. Um, Basically, people told me to walk away, give up the ship, move away from it, and I jumped right in because I'm used to, I guess, taking on hard stuff, and I rebuilt a community that I focused on, um, basically building up the trust first, and then building the community, and then from there, kind of then monetizing that into what it is now. So, and then I went through a divorce and rebuilt my life. I lost over 100 pounds in a year. And just like Pitch and Rudder, I rebuilt everything about my life and just kind of moved forward. So, um,
Man, we have
yeah, I
so
guess,
much to pull back in 30 minutes.
yeah.
We better get into it. So, I think, one thing that was missing from that is Pitch and Rudder is a military community style focused organization. But you yourself, you're not a veteran, you're not military.
Not at all. I am that was the last thing I thought when if you would have said like 6 years ago that I'd be running a military brand that was Navy focused and I would know more about the Navy and other military, like, period, I would have laughed in your face. I would have said, "No way, you're crazy." But yes, it's been a wild ride. I've been embraced by a community that I wasn't a part of, and I think a lot of it's just been being able to listen to community members, understanding their story, being able to help them tell their story, and being able to build products that resonate. Um, just by listening. I mean, I think a lot of people don't listen well to their own customers, and so that's where I've been blessed to be able to grow the business just by doing what I do well, which is just listen.
And then that's tough to do. I will say it's tough to make yourself a part of the veteran community if you yourself are not a veteran, right? And so that's interesting that you're able to do that. And only known very few people to do that successfully. So, like you said earlier, you take on hard things, and I think it reminds me of something that I say all the time because people always, I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm like, well, that sounds difficult to me. I really never processed that. When I said, look, I'm going to do something, the idea of it being difficult really is never a thought process that I have. I'm just like, well, I want to do that. It's almost like it's difficult. I'm like, yeah, you're right. It is difficult, ain't it? You seem like that type of person just by, coming from a master's, right? Difficult, time consuming. And, the homeless piece, which you can't go any further without talking about that. You were homeless for a year, right? Kind of how'd that happen? How'd you navigate that?
Oh, it kind of it took me by surprise. My place that I was living, it was a garden level apartment, had basically flooded with water, and it wasn't covered by insurance. And so, what I thought was a safety net ended up being taken away like that. And I was able to salvage some stuff, put it in storage, and I didn't have enough money to go and jump to a new place at that point because I lost everything. And so I ended up doing what I needed to do to survive, which I wasn't going to call back home and say, "Hey, mom, you know, I, I'm doing not doing so hot." And I was actually still in my master's degree at the same time, and so I ended up just, I guess, doing what I needed to do to survive, which was just finding a place to sleep. I slept in my truck for a bit. I surfed. I slept in a closet on a cot. Just kind of just little steps here and there to kind of get moving. And I still would. I mean, my computer at the time, I ended up it was water damaged, but I would be able to write a paper, and it was iffy if it was going to like keep open or if it actually like save. It would kind of glitch out. So there's many times that I had to like rewrite entire papers just in one and run and go because the computer would shut down unexpectedly and it wouldn't necessarily do what it's supposed to do. So basically just um, moved on through, and then eventually it was a friend had gotten me into a job that I wasn't necessarily qualified for at Wells Fargo, and it was that little bit of helping hand that I think people don't realize, like the little things that they do that can definitely change the trajectory of somebody's life. And so I was able to get in and work from there. That's how I learned how to deal with like corporate and write effective emails, but also deal with difficult situations and process improvements, and
You
basically
know
kind of move from there. So that was kind of how I got out of being in that situation.
what I
um,
find interesting though about that is you didn't run to go stay with your family, right? I been there, right? So I've been there, right? I remember I stayed one night at my grandmother's house when I originally became without lodging, right? so, but that was quick. Good luck that I had the means to fix it through a divorce, right? However, you didn't. So, was it because you knew that would have been a crutch, or what made you not lean on that particular thing? Which by the way, I'm with you. I couldn't do it either, right? I couldn't lean on why did you decide not to lean on that family element?
well, that would for me that would have meant giving up on my what I wanted to do, or what my trajectory was, what I wanted to accomplish. And I was a first generation college student. I was the first one to go into get an advanced degree as well. um, and so for me, going back home would be admitting defeat, that I wasn't able to do what I set out to do. And so I think it was a combination of pride, but also just it, I know that me going back home, it would have been, there was, you basically have the factories, um, like that you can work out of. And my dad was a lifelong factory worker, and he had told me like to get out and do something and get my degree and move forward that way and not come back home because basically it was, a dead end. Not that the people that live there it is a dead end for them, but um, just on what my trajectory, what I wanted to do with my life, it wouldn't have been a good fit. So, and that was kind of where I didn't I I guess I just didn't feel like I wanted to kind of go back to that part um, because I'd already been out for a bit. So, and I just got to see life, and it wasn't where I necessarily wanted to end up. So I was like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to make it work. And I didn't necessarily see it as a my situation as like, oh, this is super tough. I just was like, I just need to figure it out, and I'll figure it out.
No, I 100% understand that. And that's great, right? You knew that would have been a step back and a kind of a sinkhole, right? It would have been hard to resurface from that again. No, well said. And so, you know, then we fast forward, right? We made through, all these challenges, right? And then why pitch roar? So you said it yourself, it was abandoned. And so why would you pick up an abandoned? What about pitch and rudder made it so appealing to you to save?
I think at the time it was probably like stupidity, but that
That's fun.
stubbornness aspect of not wanting to give up.
Yeah.
So I had another business that I was doing. When I so in after I completed my master's, actually during that time, I ended up because I've been building websites and doing like marketing campaigns, for beer money and other people. And I ended up doing a consulting side where I would just basically consult on marketing strategies, psychological based. Um, and that started to kind of take off. And Pitch and Rudder was actually one of my earlier clients during that period. And I helped them grow to what they did get up to. But then they got to an inflection point and basically um, failed. And so yeah, basically I was like, I saw the potential there. I understood kind of like the idea of it. And I was like, oh, I'm up for a challenge and something different. And it was just right as COVID was kind of starting to kind of take off. And I was like, I saw my clients on my other business side kind of just vanish overnight. And I was like, I need to pivot somewhere, and like this seems like a good opportunity. And I was like, I can fix it. I mean, it obviously the previous owner at the time made it seem like it was better than it was. And it turned out to be over 2,000 back orders when he said it was only a few hundred. And these were, I mean, it was just a lot. And so basically at that time, I didn't necessarily see all the potholes that the business had. So maybe if I had, I would have been a little bit more cautious. Um, so I guess you could say naive. I was a little naive on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, once I was in, I was like, oh, I'm in. I gotta make a decision whether I'm gonna wind down my other business and focus on this, and that's what I did. Um, and I think half the time I mean, 90% of the time, if you're going to be in something, you can't just go, just get your toes wet. You got to dive in and make a
Yeah.
decision. So yeah,
Well, well said. Well said. Um, and I feel like I've always told people like you have to be all in, burn the boat and everything. And I have to take my own medicine sometimes. I find myself being, tippy toeing at things. I'm like, oh wait, I'm doing what I tell people not to do. Right. And so it's sometimes, but being in it, when you're knee deep or sometimes eyeball deep in it, right? It becomes a really weird way to realize your reality. And so that's cool. So you made it, right? You took over the business. And so tell us, I think it's a great time. We're well into the podcast here, almost 15 minutes. But what is pitch and rudder? What is a pitch and a rudder, right? Like, what are we talking about here?
so Pitch and Rudder is a Navy lifestyle brand, is what I'm building it up to. We do military. We do DoD authorized belt buckles, challenge coins, and accessories. We cater to a lot of the Navy community. But we also do other branches as well. A lot of custom memorabilia, a lot of emblematic items. So we help people, service members and organizations tell their stories through emblematic items. such as challenge coins and belt buckles. And they really just kind of help people tell a story of, where their business or where they were personally, where the service. Um, that's
So like unit insignias and things like that.
Yeah, unit insignias, their history. A lot of them, we get retirement coins that they want to celebrate their retirement. We get units,
Oh,
entire
like
ships.
challenge coins,
Huh?
like challenge coins.
Yep, challenge coins,
Cool.
belt buckles, a lot of belt buckles. We're well known for our belt buckles. I've always focused on quality over just the lower options. So basically, we've been known for having a higher quality belt buckle, and we've done everything from, well, now we're getting into fire departments and police stations that are coming in too, that are just getting belt buckles made for themselves or challenge coins.
I like it. Yeah, it's interesting. You're different. Pitch and Rudder is very Navy, right? You could do some DBA, some axe and ladder, some baton and pistol for
I think
the
we're gonna find
cops.
out.
Right. But no, that's great. No, yeah. I have to admit, of all the military, I own like one. So I'm very rare in the military. I don't have military tattoos. So I have tattoos, but I'm military tattoos, right? And the only military like T-shirt I have I think two of them. One was a tank top they gave me when I graduated BRC for reconnaissance. Like that's the old like that one tank top, faded in black, right? And then I have some unit ones that I've never really worn, right? I'm not going to wear OD green t-shirts. It's not my jam, right? But then I have like another one for Recon Sniper Foundation, which is a charity that I was heavily involved in. Like those are the only two ones that I've never really done like a wear logo things military guy, right? But they exist. And you know what they exist in more than ever? The veterans. I tell you, I know Marines and Navy guys alike who they just never stopped bitching their entire time in the military. Right? Oh, I can't wait to get out. They get out the proudest veterans that the world has ever seen. And so, like, they exist. I think, my brother, Josh, is one of them, right? His stickers across the back of his truck, big, he is a war hero. I'll give him that. All right. And so, he has the right to be motivated, as they say. But I never been a belt buckle fan. I already have a really big cowboy hat. I don't think I can walk around with belt buckles on.
Well, I used to not wear belt buckles until I became pitch and rudder, and
Now you
basically now I wear
kind of
belt
have
buckles on a regular. Yeah.
to.
So I think, yeah, it's definitely a different culture. But I mean,
Definitely.
overall, I feel like people like to wear accessories and tell a story. So if you can help them tell a story, it's something that resonates with them. They'll wear it. I mean, I've had people that wear belt buckles that didn't wear a belt buckle until they started to, you know, they got one, and then they're like, oh, this is actually really cool. And I think a lot of my industry, a lot of military veterans leave the military and they bring their traditions out into the workplace, into their organizations, and so that's where I'm seeing more organizations coming in, requesting custom belt buckles, because in the Navy, you can wear a custom belt buckle that's related to your unit, your command, your rate, your job, and basically
I don't
they
think the
bring
Marine
it
Corps
on.
plays that game.
So
So I don't think the Marine Corps doesn't allow. I think the only thing they allow is your martial arts belt or a rigger's belt. I just always wore a rigger's belt, and so or no belt at all. To be honest with you, it was not the most regulation focused Marine, and so if I was in the belt buckles, I probably would have wore your belt buckle, right? And so just because I think that I did see this one guy. He was um, a a bull rider before the Marine Corps. He used to always wear a bull rider one in his Marine Corps uniform, and he used to get so much crap for it all the time. And so, I love the idea of what you're doing. So belt buckles, t-shirts, right? Definitely
yep,
t-shirts,
definitely
challenge
t-shirts.
coins. That's the three bread and butter ones there.
Yeah, belt buckles, challenge coins, t-shirts. We do printed. I brought in. So my focus for pitch and rudders, I've been bringing more stuff here, for more made in the United States as much as I can. And so like the long term goal is to kind of bring more US made manufacturing here as possible. So we do in house UV printing and laser engraving. So we're able to do a lot of personalization that other competitors don't necessarily do, and do it fast for those ones.
So in and I love what it does, and being that I come from the military, a lot of applicability for what you do, right? A lot of market for it. But why? Why did you do, like we went into a brand that's military? It's like jumping into the water and you're not a fish, right? And so why did you decide? What made you want to get into running your own business in general at all, let alone pitch and rudder?
Well, I ironically, it's out of necessity that I even started a business in the first place. My son had hydrocephalus, which is like water on the brain. So we had gotten a diagnosis that it was like his head was a lot bigger, and so we got told that he had fluid buildup, and so we ended up having difficulty finding childcare. And at that time, I was in corporate Wells Fargo, and things were doing great, and I was like, I need to make a decision what I'm going to do, and we couldn't find childcare because I didn't want to have to do the added um, danger of like basically something he could die if
Yeah,
he
of
wasn't
course.
monitored. So basically, at that time, I made a decision to make my own business, and that's where I went into like the consulting side. And my first year, I made $300, and I was like, oh crap, I screwed up bad. And then after that, I was able to replace my income. So it felt a little bit more like, okay, now this might actually work. So it wasn't necessarily out of like, I want to do this. I had wanted to make a business, but I wouldn't recommend how I went into it. If it was like a perfect world, I would have stayed in my job and did it on the side and,
Yeah.
built up a nest egg. Um, and I definitely wouldn't have acquired Pitch and Rudder and then invested all of my money into Pitch and Rudder to rebuild it. Those are things that like at the time they were, what I was like, this is what we needed to do, and I'm just solving a problem. Um, so I wouldn't say it was like I've always wanted to be this. I knew that I always wanted to do something, and I didn't necessarily like being stuck in like the corporate mindset. I'm probably a bad employee. I'm a very bad employee now. So if I was,
A
if I was
horrible
to go in,
employee.
once you've gotten into entrepreneurship, I'm like, I'm not a good employee after that point. I'm too
Well,
focused.
yeah, no, like I own telehelping. I don't do really any work in telehelping. For anybody who's watching this, I really don't work at telehelping, but I'm in charge of it. I mean, I own it. I'm in charge of the operations team and everything, and I give them my opinion on things, but I don't really do anything there. Um, but I am the principal at an accounting firm, right? So I hold an executive role at another. So I because who has enough time in the day not to do multiple jobs, right? Who sleeps? Right. And so I'm very busy, but telehelping, super successful business. Nonetheless, I didn't start it at the same reason. I didn't start it because one day I'm like, you know what I want? I'm going to own a virtual staffing organization. I think that's what I'm going to do. And that's a great idea, Cody. Right. And so I'm like, no, it's just like, I left another company. I'm like, oh, I still own this. This is still mine. And then maybe I should do something with this. Yeah, I think I'll do this. I think I'll run this full time now, right? Because I do need to eat, right? I exited the company. I still want to make money every month, right? And so I'm too young to retire. And so I look, yeah, I'm going to do this, right? And so it just kind of happened. I think that's a lot. I think just kind of happening is a lot of entrepreneurship, right? Just like this became this situation, availability, home care ended up to being, how do I get flexible and be in charge of my own hours? Kinda. And then start a company, right? And so, no, I think that's a beautiful story, man. Well, tell me a little bit, if you're talking to all the entrepreneurs, because this is for people out there who are entrepreneurs who are experiencing maybe isolation, right? Right. Maybe because I don't know about you, but I'll raise my hand 10 times to this that I feel alone all the time. I feel
Mhm.
like no one's making Cody's decisions except Cody. And it doesn't matter how much you talk to your wife about it, you're still Jason. Jason's the one making the decision. You need to realize sometimes that we're all experiencing similar challenges, different circumstances, and similar challenges. you know, what's the words that you have to people out there who maybe want to buy a business, that maybe want to be an entrepreneur, or, are challenged the way that, we're challenged every day?
Um, Well, I think so. I think one is don't confuse momentum with progress. Like being busy doesn't doesn't equal scalable. Like you need to, just because you're busy in whatever business you're doing doesn't necessarily mean you're busy in a good way. Um, I think people kind of, especially early on, I would be like, oh man, I'm hustling, I'm doing this, I have all this stuff. I'm like all these meetings back to back. I'm like, I'm in the grind, look at me. And I wasn't making any progress because I wouldn't be focusing on anything that mattered. It would be little shiny object syndrome where you go after and chase something and you're like, oh well, great. I just spent like a month doing this and it's not anywhere. And in the beginning, you're throwing spaghetti at the wall, seeing what sticks in business, and there is that piece. Um, but I think if you want something that's scalable and you're actually running a business, you have to start thinking in systems and understanding that when it is slow, for me, when it was slow, I worked on the theoretical, what is it going to be like if I'm busy and I want to pass this off to somebody? I need to have a system or an SOP, that a standard operating procedure that I can just pass off and let somebody else do it so that I can sit back and then focus on something else that matters. And so I would focus on, what am I going to do for my systems right now? And if you're just starting out, yeah, you're not going to necessarily know what it looks like for your sales process, but you should have a good idea of like what the sales flow through your business should be, because the smoother you can make your sales cycle. And I'm still, I'm not perfect at it, but we have a decent sales flow once it's in there. um, but understanding where your sales flow goes is going to help you sell more, because you can make there's so many businesses that are out there that you don't even realize exist, that are making millions or even more um on things that are mundane, that don't matter. Like you don't think about them. Like you don't think about light fixtures as like a big billion-dollar business, but there's companies out there that just focus on little tiny light fixtures, or that little tiny, you know um fastener that goes in there, and you don't necessarily think about those things, but they're running very profitable businesses, and they all have a sales cycle on how they go through. Yeah, they can be solving a problem, but if you get your lead, you got to sell them on the lead, like why your product's better. You got to push them through the flow, and the faster you can get that done, the faster you can close the deal. And so you can make a business out of anything. I think people kind of assume that they have to have some great big idea um, to make a business, and you just got to find where a pain point is. I think that's the biggest thing. If you're able to find something that people like need or want, and solve it, and don't just try to invent a problem. I think that's people. I don't know how many times you come up with like, oh, that'd be really cool to do this.
Invent, invent a problem.
You're like,
Yeah. No.
you have like 16 different ways of doing something that's already like, well, there's other competitors out there that do the exact same thing. What sets you apart? Um, and so I think if you have the thing that can set you apart in any business, I mean, there's that do what I do. But your sales flow, how you go through things like that can be one differentiator that sets you apart from other competitors. You know,
Very much so.
it's not necessarily a chase to the bottom for pricing, because I mean, I think people, the tendency is to undercharge. Um, and I don't think you don't have to undercharge. Charge what you're worth, and then say why. A customer's going to believe you more about why your product's better if you have a price point that represents that, versus just a race to the bottom. So yeah, yeah, and I think I mean, from what I've learned from Pitch and Rudder, another one would be earn your community before you monetize it. Earn trust first, and then the transactions will follow. So that's, I mean, I think people kind of rush, put the cart before the horse. Build your community, build your customer base, whether that's small jobs in the beginning and just kind of building it on slow momentum. Slow momentum adds up. And I think the other thing that I've been kind of focusing on is understanding that I might not see something in, whatever inferno, I've been saying inferno of shit that I'm in right now, and I might be like, oh, this is the worst thing ever. And I look back, or I just had a post show up. It was like 4 years ago from like when I did my first belt buckle, and I was just representing on like a lot of loss that had happened in 2021 into 2022. And I didn't see Like, I just saw that and it just reminded me of how far I come from the beginning to where I am now. And I guess you don't necessarily, it's like, appreciate the journey that you're on, because you're not going to get that same momentum. But when you're dealing with your day to day, just look what it was a few years back and be like, okay, you know what? I'm better than I was before. And kind of moving from there and use that as benchmarks. And, that's, I guess that's kind of like a little, like, I just saw that before the podcast. So I was like, oh, that popped up in my timeline. I was like, oh, you know what? That was 4 years ago. That was a lot. Lots have happened in 4 years. This change with the business. So, and
No,
then,
like very, very much. I think and, hit on that real quick. It's just the fact that like, um, I was just checking with my wife because I was saying, like, oh, we're dealing with this issue, blah blah blah. She's like, oh, you've always dealt with those issues, and I thought, I'm like, we have, but we deal with them differently now, right? Like we have so big, like we do the same problems, 3 years ago that we do it today. It's just now you have systems, processes, and people who do all those things. Like it used to be like me, like I did those things, right? So
yeah,
I was the one trying to fix those problems. Where now it's just like, okay, right? It's being fixed.
yeah, and that's exactly. I had my systems planned out, and when I did my first hire, I was able to just pass them what I wanted them to do, and they picked it up, and they were on the floor running within a week. And they had taken over laser engraving. UV printing is like just starting to come up here too, but like the t-shirt printing, everything has been kind of moving forward. And adding in custom quotes for emails, like those things where I used to do them. um I'm not doing them anymore, and I'm able to focus on things that actually bring in other, higher value contracts. Doing more strategic planning, working on additional SOPs for future hires. And so now
Yeah.
I'm out of the day to day, where I'm able to work from home and do something, and then just come to the shop and make sure things are kind of working, going well. But for the most part, um, I'm not in like crazy. Oh, got to keep my head down. I'm usually working on something that's like what's our next product launch in the future. What kind of products do I want to put out? What resonates? What's on pop culture mind that I can kind of take advantage of, and kind of navigate that, and take podcasts or interviews, or do things that aren't necessarily me working on the
You're
business.
you're actually you're actually a leader. I give I'm a little brutal sometimes with my new clients when I'm chatting with like, oh, I'm the CEO of so and so. I'm like, great, who works for you? It's just me. I'm like, you're the CEO of jack shit, right? To
Mhm.
be honest with you. Right. And so like, if and I'll be chatting with people because sometimes they'll hire virtual staff members and they can't get them to work out because they don't train them, put them like, okay, if you can't lead one person, you can't lead anything. I mean, maybe you're just a sole entrepreneurship forever. And so being able to effectively scale by having someone come on and delegate down to them, you're ahead of the game, Jason. And Jason, I want to go ahead and say I appreciate your time. Right, it's been a pleasure for another opportunity to chat with you. To get more details, put like more layers, and then ultimately broadcast this out to the community that is the Faces. And so you're such a unique example, and like I said before we chatted, you're a great representation of unique for where we're aiming at to land this year as a podcast. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you for jumping on today.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate every conversation that we've had has been amazing. So I appreciate being the opportunity to be on here and just share a little bit about me and where we're going.
No, I'm excited for you. Good luck with Pitch and Rubber, and of course we're gonna stay connected. So I'll know where you're heading. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you for watching The Faces. Entrepreneurs are people too. Please like, subscribe, and follow us on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Spotify so you do not miss any of our content just like today. We really appreciate you being one of our viewers and see you soon.